Hi, I'm Charlene Laney, co-founder of Newmaker Financial and certified financial planner. Today, we are here for our fifth and final segment of this interview with Michael Idelson of Evolved Legal. He's an estate planning attorney here in Denver, Colorado, and I am very excited to ask him this important, although perhaps seemingly simple question. What is the difference between a will and a trust?
Yeah, so such a great question. I get this one really frequently. So kind of at their most basic, a trust, think of it as sort of it's a legal entity. It's like a corporation or LLC. You can put property into it, it can own and hold property, and it can pay property out over time. So a trust is valuable because it can live beyond you. It can also avoid the probate process because a trust, just kind of as if it were a surviving person under the law, it can continue to hold property even after you pass away.
Right.
So conceptually, that's a really good way to kind of understand what a trust is. A will, on the other hand, at its most basic, it talks about what your wishes are for your property. Once you pass away, the will provides instructions as to how property should be distributed, and it just gets distributed through the probate process, and then it's done. So you don't have the same degree of control over your property with a will as you do with a trust. The other thing to know is a trust is a little bit more private because a will goes through the probate process. People know when other people have died and an estate goes to probate.
Right.
Whereas things can be kept private with a trust. So those are kind of like the big distinctions. And then whether kind of one or the other makes sense comes a lot down to you're with your beneficiaries. Are you comfortable with them receiving assets all at once through the probate process, or do you want to distribute over time and add certain conditions to them receiving assets? So
Yeah.
that's like a bird's eye view way to look at it.
Okay, got it. So just to recap, a will is more of an instructional document that does not have the benefit of privacy when you pass away, is subject to probate, which means that not only is there additional cost associated with that process of probate, but it also means that your wishes can be contested too, right, through the process of probate, and can really take a long time for those things to come to fruition. Whereas a trust is an entity that can uphold your wishes even beyond your passing and even continue to contain your property after you pass away. Did I hear all of that right?
Yeah, that's correct. One quick distinction I just want to make,
Yeah.
quick piece of information. So a trust can be contested as well by the beneficiaries of the trust. However, it's not really, it's different than a will going through the probate process. A trust is more, a trust doesn't have to go through probate. So the only time when a trust would be contested is if the beneficiaries to the trust bring some sort of legal action against the trustee.
And if that were to happen, it would still have the benefit of privacy, right? Because it's not going through probate.
Correct. Yeah, that's
Got it.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
And so I know that we're doing a generalized video here, and we can't speak for whomever is watching this video or has stumbled upon this video, but what are some things that might indicate someone should consider a trust?
Yeah. So a few things. One, the most primary thing, are the beneficiaries young? So, one thing is like if someone has, minor children, for example, who are not old enough to inherit money, that would be a really good reason to use a trust. Or are there adult children who are likely to spend a lot of money? If they received a lump sum of money through a will, let's say, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially of money, Would they spend it all at once? Would they waste it? Would they spend it on substances? That's another reason why trusts are frequently used. Are there special needs there? So is somebody maybe somebody lacks capacity to manage assets that they would receive through an inheritance. So those are all really good reasons. Other reasons that people don't often think of with a trust are if someone owns out-of-state property. So let's say somebody owns property not only in Colorado, but also another state. What would happen then in that case is there would potentially be an ancillary probate in every single state where that person held property before they died, which would be a real headache from a probate standpoint. So, again, that's another reason for a trust. Those are kind of some of the biggest high-level reasons. I mean, the other reason is just probate avoidance in general. If somebody doesn't want their descendants to have to go through the headache of opening a probate with the court and taking care of all the assets, as well as any potential family fighting that might cause, a trust might be a good solution for that as well.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense and really important considerations here. So thank you for educating us on that. I'm curious though, because I've heard from different voices in the field about trusts that, some people think everyone needs a trust, everyone should consider a trust, or maybe you just need a will. I know for the purpose of avoiding probate, trusts are a really great go-to tool for that, but do you think that everyone should consider a trust, or is it possible to meet your needs and goals with just a simple will, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. It's very, very fact specific. Each person that each of my clients, when we talk, it depends on their case. It depends on the nature of their family and all the kind of factors that we discussed, as well as, I will say this: as people acquire more and more assets in life, a trust can appear to make more and more sense. And I'll give a quick example of that. Like if people own, let's say like rental properties that they want to rent out, trusts can provide some liability protection. So if someone, like, let's say, slips and falls and you're leasing out your property, if you have your property in a trust, it's a little bit, it's another layer of protection, basically. So unfortunately, there's no like one size fits all approach.
Right.
I will say it's kind of like a Venn diagram, and the people that a will would be suitable for is a smaller segment of the population than a trust, because a trust can do everything a will can do and more, because you kind of have the power to administer your assets from beyond the grave if you set it up correctly.
Right.
And so I would say that while a trust makes sense for a lot of people, it may not necessarily be necessary in your particular situation, because maybe you have a really simple situation. Maybe you just have, let's say like a couple kids and you want your assets equally divided and you're not concerned about probate. You don't own any out-of-state property, and your kids are adult children and you're not worried about them overspending. That's more of a perfect will situation, but a trust would also be appropriate for that. So that's just kind of a long way of saying, basically, it's very, very fact specific. And I would recommend anybody to talk to an attorney, because you really have to sit down with somebody and figure out what your situation involves before you know whether a will or a trust might make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes total sense, that it's not going to be a one size fits all answer for something like this, and very highly contingent on your individual facts and goals and your family and all of these things. So as we said, talk to your estate planning attorney if you need one. Michael Idelson is here in Colorado, and you're licensed as well in California.
And Washington, D.C.
And in Washington, D.C. Okay. So for the viewers, talk to Michael. But yes, thank you so much for educating us and reminding us of the differences between a will and a trust. Viewers, we hope that this has been helpful for you. We feel that these are questions that come up quite a bit when it comes to estate planning, and gosh, a lot of the hangups that stop us from even doing our estate planning. I know a lot of that is really just a lack of information, and so there's some level of discomfort with broaching this subject altogether. And we are hoping that through this series of videos, this has helped make estate planning a little bit more approachable for you. If you have further questions on it, feel free to contact us at Newmaker and or Michael Idelson at Evolved Legal. We will be doing more of these video series in the future. So as you think of other topics you'd like to hear more about, we can certainly, and we're already planning to bring Michael back at some point, but other topics that you want to hear about, let us know. Thank you again so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.